Good evening, sunshines. I hope you are all having a fabulous day. I'm so glad you've joined us on this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. Here it is, in case you're lost. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome. We have so much to do and talk about and gossip about today. A possible pregnancy announcement, some debunking of some accidental rumors that have been going around. We have to talk about the world's tiniest calf that was recently born here and all the questions and all the answers. If we could give a huge shout out to Emily, who you can't see in the background. She's the wizard behind the curtain. Oops.
Oh, there's the hand.
That one, that's someplace over there. And Emily is moderating the chat, so don't be a turd. And please keep your great questions coming. So anything within reason is askable. We'd love to see that. And also a huge shout out to Redmond, the sponsor of our lives and so much else in life, for being here. So let's talk about all the things.
Should we? Well, you've teased it, and I feel like we can't leave this one hanging too long, but on the agenda, it's called Accidental Pregnancy Announcement.
Yeah, so we released a video called
How I Finally Won the War on Invasive Grasses.
Yes, this week. And it's about basically how to deal with creeping weeds of any kind in the garden. And at the end of the video, we were talking about management strategies for, like, I don't want to give the whole video away because it's a good one and you should probably watch it for lots of reasons.
But she won the war on invasive grasses.
But I did win the war on creeping weeds. A big part, it goes through all of what you need to do to make your garden actually be lazy from a weeding perspective, and aka not having to weed. All that to say that at the end of the video, we were talking about the reason that I am currently overhauling our garden, and that is because when Alexander was born, there was several very unexpected complications that, like, basically took me out of commission for 4 months. And in my my pre-birth state, I was sure that I would just be back out in the garden, within a couple weeks of him being born. And that was, as it turns out, a major joke. All that to say, the thing that had worked for 6 years to keep the weeds out of my garden stopped working because the maintenance part of it was not being done. So at the end of the video, we're talking about, hey, so like I'm redoing this. I don't have to do it again. So next baby, Adam, what are you going to do? And he's like, wait, what do I have to do now? And I was like, you need to keep up with the weed whacking. And then apparently, like, everyone in the comment section thought that meant that he was asking about what he needs to do now.
Yeah, we got a lot of congratulations.
And here's the thing.
I hate to let people down.
For those who are of the praying type, we're ready for number 2. And if you have been following us for any amount of time whatsoever, you know that bringing number 1 into the world was already a huge miracle. And we would love to give him some siblings. But we'll let you know when that's actually going on.
I think as more people start to join, just want to remind everybody to drop questions in the chat. We'll do our best to get through them as they come up. We did theme this as lazy gardening spring prep.
Yes.
But any and all questions are welcome, of course.
As we're sitting in my woodworking shop, we always have to remind people that this used to be a woodworking channel. So, like, basically all questions are fine and great and wonderful, but it's spring. The asparagus is starting to pop up. I just ate some delicious asparagus with my son, Alexander, today, and he loved it. I was planting potatoes today, which is why I have to turn with my whole body right now, because I think I've really overdone it with my hoeing. That's feels like something I shouldn't just like stop talking on. But anyway, I was using an actual hoe, just to be clear.
Somebody asked if your mug was pregnant.
Oh yeah, and the funny thing is, we actually decided that, like, while I was talking about our non-pregnancy announcement, it would be really funny for me to use my pregnancy mug, which, by the way, was like a little Easter egg in our videos. In every video that we filmed while I was pregnant, even before we announced that I was pregnant, I was using the pregnancy mug in the video. So there's an Easter egg for you. But I just thought it would be funny to bring it out for this particular non-pregnancy announcement.
Yeah, you teased it at the beginning of the video, but I couldn't keep the tease that long. It's just too uncomfortable to say that there was a surprise pregnancy announcement and then not.
Well, we live on a farm. You never know what we could be talking about.
That's true.
All that to say,
put the Q&A in the chat. We will get to them.
Put your questions in the chat and we'll get them.
Questions.
Yes. Okay. So while we're waiting for some especially juicy questions to come in, what should we talk about, Adam?
We can talk about what's going on in the garden. What are you looking forward to right now?
Well, if any of you, the one or two of you in my audience who care about pawpaws are paying attention to what's going on with pawpaw season, get your little paintbrushes ready because it's almost time for us to become the mamas and the papas of lots of pawpaws by pollinating the little flowers. So if you are growing pawpaws and you don't know this already, pawpaws can only be pollinated from other non-related rhizomal pawpaw trees. So I have to prance back into the forest to get a whole bunch of different pollen from different pawpaw trees to then bring out and pollinate my pawpaw trees with my paintbrush. And I mean, yes, the flies and the other pollinators probably will, maybe might pollinate them, but as a passionate pawpaw eater, I want to make sure that I get maximum results.
What are you growing this year?
Pawpaws, for one. A whole lot of rhubarb, because now that we've cracked the code on growing rhubarb in Tennessee, it's happening. I have an enormous amount of rhubarb growing now, which is really pleasant. My nectarine tree, my peach tree that was famous from the You're Probably Killing Your Fruit Trees video is popping off right now. And I'm so excited to get a whole lot of peaches from that. But far more interestingly for me, all of the nectarine trees that I grew myself from locally grown rootstock that then I grafted the nectarines to, I'm so excited because they are we're going to get fruit from all of them this year. And I really can't wait about that. I
have a garden tour.
Oh yeah,
coming up.
Lest I just give you the whole garden tour right now. Yeah, next week we'll release our very early spring garden tour video, and you can see what else we're growing.
So that'll be fun filming that.
Yes, it's very silly and very funny, and hopefully very informative for those who want to be informed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff
Mossman,
for the super chat.
Welcome. Glad you're here, buddy. Pawpaw tastes like
What does pawpaw taste like? Yeah.
What does pawpaw taste like? It tastes like a mix between a banana and a mango. And it's the only tropical tasting fruit that grows outside in the wild where it also snows, for what that's worth.
There you go.
It's very smooth. The fruit is very smooth and very delicious. I am obsessed.
I love it. How frequently do you find yourself laying down another layer of cardboard when you replenish a gardening area? Every year, every 2 years? Zen, Dog, Jeff. That's
a great question. And it's actually one that we address in our our spring garden checklist videos, as well as our very recent How I Finally Won the War on Creeping Grasses or something like that video. The answer to that question is that in the middle part of my garden, I don't even need to use cardboard anymore because we've already pretty much nixed all the weeds in that area. But we talk about in the How I Won the War video, the importance of having buffers. And so in my buffer areas, basically the outer areas of the garden, I replenish that as necessary. And that around here usually means every year.
Sweet. maybe you want to talk about the cow biting your hair?
Oh yeah. Okay. So here's the thing, because I mean, anyone who has had kids here.
Well, I'm only mentioning this because you brought it up in the story prior to this live, something about cow biting your hair.
Okay. So and I'm saying, so any woman here who has ever had kids understands what like postpartum hair loss is like. And this is about the time that all of my friends who had previously had kids like started to have like these little fluffies like everywhere because their hair was finally growing back after pregnancy. And that's definitely going on for me too. But I have this one tuft of hair now that it's like absolutely way more tufty than the rest of them. And that is because the other day, while I was very preciously snuggling with my cow, I think Adam has some visual aids for this, but I was snuggling with my cow and he was taking some really cute, precious pictures of the whole situation. There's Alexander. Everyone say hi, Alexander. Hopefully he's asleep. Mercifully, Grandma's here to hang out with him right now, so that's amazing. But
this was part of the same photo session.
Yes, it was part of the same photo session. But anyway, so I'm snuggling with my cow, and it's licking my face. And I'm like, oh, this is so precious. And Adam is like, oh, yeah, like it's licking you, which was cute. But then a moment later.
Oh, yeah, the next photo.
Please zoom in. That is why I now have a very specific tuft of hair, very much missing. And today, while I was making a story about this, because my hair was especially wild in my stories today, this little dummy comes up behind me and tries to do it again. Also, please say hello to the goose, who apparently wants to be part of this live stream because she's right outside my door yelling at all of us. So that exists. Anyway, so yeah, that particular tuft is not postpartum hair situation, but you know, what a rude little muffin that mozzarella cow is.
Ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Mozzarella. What'd you call it, mozzarella? Did you say?
Okay, well, mozzarella is the third in the line of my favorite cow, Cheddar, whose first baby was Butter, and mozzarella is the third baby, but mozzarella has a really perfect little mozzarella spot.
Oh, it's not.
Wait, you're not in the.
That's a different cow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, Butter's one back. If you keep going, I think the other way you can show Butter.
This is Butter.
This is Butter. And yeah, anyway, but Cheddar, their mom, is like my favorite cow ever. But yeah, this is the lineage is Butter and Mozzarella. Mozzarella is named Mozzarella because she's all black, except she has a perfect little mozzarella ball on her side. And it looks like a mozzarella ball. So obviously Cheddar's Mozzarella had to have mozzarella. Another funny thing about these, which I feel like maybe the hair envy thing that she was doing is because I always talk about how messy Cheddar's baby's hairs are. Hair, whatever. This little tuft of hair up in the top.
Oh, up here?
Yes, is on Cheddar's babies and Cheddar herself. All of them have like super, super messy hair there. Whereas all my other Jersey cows have like very nicely combed hair up there. So I don't know what it is about Cheddar's babies and Cheddar that have really messy hair. But anyway.
All right. Well.
Great. That was funny. Okay. So another thing that I think is probably important that we talk about up front is if you are going to any homestead festivals or et cetera, this summer, we'll probably see you there because I'm speaking at the conference in Waco at the end of April 25th and 26th, I think. And then I will be speaking at the Homestead Festival here in Columbia, Tennessee on June 5th and 6th. And then the Modern Homesteading Conference at the end of June. And we're going to Ontario to talk at a conference there on my birthday on September 19th. So we'll come hang out.
Later, I think.
More information on any of them somewhere.
We'll put it in the description.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered sheep? Huh.
I've had sheep.
Says Crystal Shaw.
Many times. And We're in the middle of a series of videos called Please Don't Get a, and then you fill in the blank. And I probably won't make one about sheep because I don't currently have sheep, but the fact that I don't currently have sheep will probably let you know how I feel about them. They're really great for certain like environments. The reality is that I don't like sheep's milk, and I have a lifetime supply of alpaca fiber that I can someday spin. And I also don't like sheep meat. So therefore, to keep some of the Earth's dumbest animals alive, despite their best efforts, seems like an endeavor for not me.
Speaking of the alpacas, we have an update on the alpacas.
Oh yes,
The
if you watched our last
continues.
If you watched our last live stream, the saga on the alpacas continues. Did we tell them the last time about the celebrity who was?
I think we mentioned it. Yeah.
Okay, so there was not one but two very, very well-known celebrities who have asked not to be named, which is totally fine. Who initially contacted us being like, we are looking for alpacas, could we take yours? And then everything was going according to plan until the day before both of them were supposed to come pick them up. And then they'd be like,
this is two separate occasions.
Yeah, two separate occasions.
But the same thing happened both times.
Yes. Then we got a text that said, actually, we just saw your video. Please don't get an alpaca. And we think they're not the right fit for a homestead. Here's the thing. In all of these things, the reason that actually probably the number one comment on our video, Please Don't Get an Alpaca, that we released last month, which is also in the Please Don't Get a series. I also actually just feel like a quick aside is that the Please Don't Get a series initially started as, I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't get this animal in hopes that if you do actually want the animal, that you just do it and you're a good steward of that animal. Because so far, all the animals that we've done on the Please Don't Get a, the end of the story is that I love having them, and I absolutely enjoy them, and it really is in fact a video about why you should get them, but just to do it responsibly. With the alpacas, however, after 12 years with alpacas, I'm pretty much just done. I didn't really intend to get them again when we moved to Tennessee, but then a situation arose where
they're rescues.
I have a bleeding heart, and yeah. So we ended up with some, and then the other problem is that I don't ever let animals, my kind of concept about this farm is that we don't want to have useless animals because this is a working farm, but also I do love animals a lot, and I have a bleeding heart for them. And so I want this to be their last home, or if they're going to go to a new home, I want it to be better than this one. And not to toot my own horn, but that's a pretty tall order for most places that they could otherwise go. All that to say that these two were potentially great homes, and I had been very upfront, hey, here's a link to the video. Here's all the reasons you probably don't want them ahead of time, but they still seem to want them until they saw the video, and then they were like, nope, never mind. That said, though, I don't want to jinx it, but I think we actually finally have found a really, really good home for them, and supposedly
it's coming on.
They're coming.
Saturday.
Well, actually, they forgot it was their daughter's birthday on Saturday, so they're coming on Tuesday to get them.
Yeah, they're probably having second thoughts.
No, they're not. I hope. But anyway, so the alpaca saga continues, and at least till Tuesday, and then we'll let you know. We'll let you know what goes on.
Okay, let's answer some more gardening questions. Do you fertilize garlic at all during spring prep? Asks Becoming Mrs. Post.
No, I actually don't fertilize anything ever. In fact, we're not. I mean, we're always a little. We always toy with video titles before we actually release them. But our next video, the concept was why I hate fertilizer, and 9 other garden spring tips or something, spring gardening tips or something. So that being that, I will say that we focus a lot more on soil health, on getting a good soil balance. We want to make sure that not just the macros that most people look at, like the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that are in fertilizers, NPK. We want to look at all of the full range of minerals, both macros and micros, and we want to get them as balanced as possible, because if our minerals are balanced in our soil, we basically don't have to worry about fertilizing or plant nutrition at all anymore, because plants will be able to get what they need out of the soil. There's a much longer TED Talk I won't make any of you listen to right now. But all that said, if you are like thinking about fertilizing or doing anything amendment wise, even if it's organic amendments, I would highly, highly, highly recommend spending the best between $32 and $40 that you could spend on your garden, because it will save you so much time, effort, energy, frustration, etc., by getting a soil test. My favorite soil test is from Redmond Agriculture. And if you use the code Ann of all trades, you'll get 20% off. So it actually ends up being very affordable. Like, their results come super quickly. The soil tests are super easy to do. Yeah, highly, highly recommend you do a soil test, and definitely get the one from Redmond, because they're not trying to sell you fertilizer. So, yeah.
Oh,
I like this one.
The top one?
Yes.
Do you guys do all your own maintenance on tractors and rototiller and all the equipment that you have?
So that's a great question, and I'm only going to focus on part of it, but I will say that the answer is both yes and no, because I didn't grow up knowing how to do any of this stuff. So if it's something that I can do, I will do it. There has only been a handful of things through the years that I've had to outsource, because I'm pretty good at figuring stuff out. But I will say that we don't have a rototiller, and we don't recommend tilling your soil, because tilling actually kills a lot of the stuff that will eventually do well in your garden. Will help you out when it comes to your need to weed, your need to water, your need to fertilize, etc. We talk a lot about tilling and why we think it's not a great idea. There are absolutely a handful of circumstances where like one till at the beginning of your gardening journey or whatever totally does make sense. But I actually talk a lot in most of my videos about why I really regret doing an initial till when we first moved here, because what ended up happening when we did that initial till is I had, in my 10 years of gardening experience prior, never encountered couch grass or rhizomal grasses before. And when you till those, you're basically breaking up all those tiny roots and replanting them. So yeah, this was my, sorry for like co-opting that comment a little bit to stand on my little lectern here, but highly recommend you don't till.
How do you, here we go. Krista Leora Shower asks, how do you help your apple trees go from leaves to fruit? 2 of my trees had next to no flowers last year.
Well, I would probably say that that's either a pruning issue, a fertility issue, or a poor luck with season issue, because what will often happen with a lot of fruit trees, especially if you live somewhere that has as mercurial of weather as Tennessee does, we have 40 false springs before it's actually spring, is that a lot of times what will happen is that your flowers, like right as they're starting to pop, will actually just freeze and fall off, and you might not even notice that your tree is flowered at all. But if your tree is genuinely not flowering, it's either not old enough to flower, not being pruned correctly, is not structurally not sound, or is like there might be a fertility issue. And we have videos for all of those issues. So I would recommend you check out our You're Probably Killing Your Fruit Trees series on YouTube.
Definitely. How do you know if your soil is balanced? Asks Ashley Hart.
That is a great question. And the answer is you do a soil test and you look at the results. And like, I also, like, I wish I could just hand everyone the, like, how easy it actually is to do a soil test, because in many seasons prior, I was always so intimidated about doing a soil test because I was like, oh, you know, it's like too sciencey, it's too hard to do, like, you know, whatever. But yeah, do a soil test. The Redmond soil test, like, I mean, there's a reason that I talk about that one. It's because the results are super easy to read. The, like, everything about it is made for the end user in mind. It's not like soil tests used to be like 20 years ago, where you would like send it into an extension agency and then you'd get like this crazy like what are those graph things that I don't know how to use? Excel spreadsheet. It was like with all these different things on it. None of that. This is literally just like a very easy to read email that tells you exactly what's going on and what you need to do to fix it. And oftentimes, there is oftentimes an imbalance. You know, the reason that fertilizer, like chemical fertilizer, does so well is because a lot of people are really missing the main three things that plants need, like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But there's so much more that plants actually need that we're only just waking up to the importance of paying attention to actually utilize that nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium well. And that's the kind of stuff that you can find out in your Redmond soil test. And so really recommend you do a soil test. Like, it's, I mean, just like anything, it's far better to know where you're starting, so that if you add something, you know what you're changing, and then you have actual scientific results, instead of just being like, well, I think that this was what worked, but then next year you try it again and that magic doesn't work the same way, and it's perplexing and frustrating and ultimately expensive. Because yeah, like I said, if there is some imbalance, there are, like, it doesn't mean that you do nothing, because balance doesn't just happen accidentally. But you know, there's a lot of naturally occurring amendments that you can get. Like, sometimes you need to up your lime a little bit, like, so you can get some dolomite lime from your local feed store or whatever else. Or maybe you need to get some bone or some feather meal, or maybe you need to put grass clippings on it for a season. And like, yeah, you'll get, it's very important to know where you're starting from, so you know where you're going, where you need to go.
Do you grow roses? I don't think
Not anymore. I used to. When we were in Washington, I grew a lot of roses, just because I actually am not a huge fan of flower gardening. However, my dad is really into flower gardening, and we are a very competitive family. And so suffice to say that I will basically do anything to prove a point when it comes to my relationship with my dad. Love him so much. But I also love winning. And I have won on many flowering occasions. So
dahlias.
Well, dahlias, roses. I mean, like, that's why we were growing the roses in Washington. I stopped doing a lot of that stuff because, you know, like, I proved my point over and over and over. And at some point, it just wasn't kind anymore.
It just was cruel. That's funny.
We didn't hug a lot in our family growing up.
What is your favorite fig variety? I collect them all, and I'm curious about your opinions.
I just went on an accidental TED Talk about the importance of scientific findings, but I'm going to be honest with you right now and tell you that I have probably 150 fig bushes at this point, but at some point I really lost track of which varieties were doing what or where, and so I couldn't tell you if I tried. But I can tell you that Chicago hardy fig seems to be the hardiest fig pretty much wherever I send it. But beyond that, couldn't tell you.
Do you know, is it beneficial to plant flowers around your vegetable garden?
If you would like to have less edible things,
If
you'd like to waste space on flowers and have less things to eat. Just kidding. I mean, here's the thing. all of us have to just balance usefulness with joy, right? And like, if you love flowers and you want some pops of color and things like that, there's actually a bunch of flowers that are really beneficial for your garden, and I would highly recommend planting them.
As trap plants?
Well, not necessarily as trap plants, but as companion plants. Like a really good example is marigolds. They smell like butt. So a lot of, pests don't like them. So you can plant them around things, and it's a nice pop of color. And then, and also you can eat the flower heads supposedly, but I, haven't, wouldn't, won't. Yeah. So, I mean, and dahlias. I have been so successful in my dahlia competition with my dad that, in fact, dahlia tubers are edible. Though I haven't actually eaten them, I have taken wheelbarrows of them and dumped them into the compost just to make my dad mad. But yeah, no, dahlia tubers are edible. A lot of tubers are actually, like flower tubers are edible. So, you can, but like, if you're going to plant a tuber, why not plant a sweet potato or a potato, and then you can fry them up in oil and they taste delicious.
A couple of questions about bamboo. I'll pick this one.
Ooh.
We have lots of bamboo. Thinking about running through my wood chipper to use as mulch. Good idea? Bad idea? Thanks.
I would categorize that as like a very good thought, but I really, really wouldn't recommend it for several reasons. First of all, depending on what kind of bamboo you have, it can take forever to break down. Some bamboo also takes basically no time to break down. But the far bigger issue is that some kinds of bamboo are very invasive, and it's a rhizomal plant. So if you chip it up, you might be planting bamboo unintentionally all through your garden. But even if none of those things are an issue, the other thing that is absolutely an issue with bamboo is that when you chip it up, it's extremely sharp. So like a bamboo sliver is no joke. And yeah, so I wouldn't really recommend it because it might either just like clog up or mess up your chipper, but also you're going to just have you're going to end up with like shards. And actually, this is kind of an interesting thing about mulch in general, but like whenever like the arborist truck shows up and they're about to dump, and I notice that there's like really long pieces, which is going to be what happens with your bamboo. Whenever there's long pieces, it's really, really hard to like rake that well and maintain it well. So like, because those long pieces get caught in all your tools all the time. And so when you might just want to do like a quick rake of your surface mulch on your garden bed to move it out of the way in spring, when it's time to like warm up the garden bed and start planting, like you might end up taking way more material than you want because there's a long shard stuck in your tool. So all that to say, the smaller the chip, the better. That I tried to think of a rhyme, but I failed. The smaller the chip, the better. And bamboo's not going to get you there.
This we kind of talked about in the garden tour we were just filming, so maybe you can address this question.
Yes. Do you plant out? I'm going to let you read it. I'm so dyslexic.
Do you plant out onions, carrots, or potatoes this early? I'm in Middle Tennessee. Hello, neighbor. And curious if you've put anything outside yet.
Yes. All of those things can go outside very early. I mean, not too early. But a good guideline for Middle Tennessee is that, and actually lots of places, is that on St. Patrick's Day, you can plant your potatoes. But actually, I'm a big fan of planting your onions and your garlic in the fall and letting them overwinter, because one of my favorite things to talk about with garlic specifically is that for garlic to turn from a clove into a bulb, it needs to go through what's called the vernalization process, which vernalization is from the word winter. And it needs to go through a cold, warm, like freeze thaw for it to actually break from that clove into a bulb full of cloves. So yes, put them out. It's probably not too late for some of your soft neck varieties of garlic to put them out now, but like, some of those ones that really like to be cold, you might be a little late on those. But you know what? I'm always like, if you've got it, why not put it in the soil and see what happens?
Bonnie C asks, do you ever start plants indoors, or are you only doing direct sow?
We do a little bit of both, and it depends on what it is. I will say that I actually I have a really great deal with our neighbor who is the husband of my dairy business's business partner. That was a really weird way of saying that our neighbor grows vegetables on a very large scale. So I trade them like work in the dairy for growing vegetable starts for us. That said, that there's only a handful of vegetable starts that I actually like recommend using as starts, because if your growing season is long enough, which it definitely is for us here in Tennessee, almost every plant will really, really benefit from being directly sown or being like put as a seed into the ground instead of transplanted. You can get away with all kinds of things. Like some plants that really struggle, that are kind of surprising, you could actually grow indoors and then like transplant outside, are beets. One of the big issues that a lot of people have with beets is not spacing them correctly. And it seems like you shouldn't grow beets from like, indoors and then transplant them outside, but they actually do really well that way. And then you can actually correctly space them. But all of that said, that the kind of plants that you absolutely should not transplant are anything in the cucurbit family. So watermelon, cucumbers, zucchinis, squashes, pumpkins, those things do not want to be planted indoors and then transplanted outdoors. Yes, I'm sure we can argue in the comment section about like, oh, I do it all the time and it works great. But the reality is that cucurbits have such delicate little feet that they don't want to be disturbed. So once they've been put in the soil, you're going to have so many fewer issues with pests and diseases. Like so many people, especially in our area, have huge issues with cucumber beetles and squash bugs and things like that. And the first question I ask them when they're struggling with those things is, did you plant it from a seed or did you plant it from a start? And therein lies half the problem.
Annie, tell me what you're drinking over there.
Oh, is this a lead-in for your
to the sponsor
graph that you made? Adam asked me earlier this week to like rate all of the flavors of this drink that I'm drinking. So here's the thing. I spent the majority of my young life, as it turns out, dangerously dehydrated. And as it turns out, I found out as a 35-year-old person like 2 years ago, that while being consistently dangerously dehydrated, your mental health struggles, check. Your brain function struggles, check. And basically everything else struggles too. So I finally found the cure to constantly being dehydrated. Should I tell the backstory of how I became so dehydrated?
We should probably say who the sponsor is.
Oh, well, here's the thing. The sponsor of all of this that we're doing here is Redmond. They make an electrolyte product called Re-Lyte that, I kid you not, has changed our life.
Well, hold on. Let me add
some context. If you had something that you wanted to say, why didn't you just say it?
So when I met Annie, one of the things I learned pretty early on is that she told me that when she was a kid, she didn't drink water. She didn't really know that like you had to drink water. And I learned that she just drank two things. Coffee as like a young child.
Yes.
And two, watermelon. So
I ate watermelon
to get hydrated.
Yes.
And that was it.
Yes.
And so
some neurospiciness was involved.
Anyways, you've come a long way.
I have.
Which leads us to the sponsor of today's
video. Leads us to the sponsor of this video. And
anyway, so we had some homework to do.
Yes.
We were supposed to make a tier list of our favorite Redmond Re-Lyte flavors.
There's a lot of flavors.
Which I've done. I did the homework. Did you?
Of course. I have never not done my homework.
Okay, so this is my tier list I made of the Redmond Re-Lyte flavors, which I'll very quickly go through here.
Okay.
So this is my own preference. No knock on pina colada, but not my favorite. Grapefruit, fantastic.
You like the grapefruit?
Yeah, I actually was like super skeptical, but then I like started putting in like
A little squirt of lemon.
a slice, like a little slice of lemon, and it's fantastic. And then I think there's a strong A tier there.
Wait, what are this A, S, A, B, C, D? This does not follow the grading scheme.
This is how you do tiers on the internet.
Well, seeing as I don't use the internet,
so there's
this is
the S
very
tier,
confusing.
which is like the God tier, and then there's
what does S stand for?
I don't know actually.
Oh, then maybe you shouldn't be using it.
Probably superior. Anyways, it's like the best.
The S tier is the best. Okay, got it. So grapefruit.
So this is mine. I did my homework. So what is your...
Wait, are you not going to elaborate further on, like, I would actually like, I mean, all the, like, well, I really like grapefruit, strawberry lemonade, great, watermelon lime, great, mango, great. I also don't really like pina colada. I definitely do not like lemon lime. I also, but like, the thing is, you made a very fancy little graph there, and high five. I hope you didn't spend too much of our working hours to do that. But hold on one second. I also have a visual aid, so
superior. The chat says superior. Yes.
Hold please. My visual aid is right here. And all of my tiers are filled with grape, kids grape specifically. My body, like, composition is now basically 99.9% grape and probably 1% chocolate Re-Lyte. But this grape kids Re-Lyte, I haven't had, well, first of all, I've never had clear water because it's disgusting.
What's the difference with the kids one?
It tastes different than the, like, I don't know why. And actually, I was going to actually talk to the scientists at Redmond about this, because I don't know why the kids grape tastes so much different than the adult grape one, but I don't like the adult grape one.
Okay.
So, but the kids one, and also the thing is too that Alexander, our son, it, like, as a 8-month-old baby, figured out how to drink out of a glass, like, much to everyone in the room's surprise. So I also just, like, instinctively switched to drinking kids Re-Lyte, because I'm like, he tries to steal my Re-Lyte, like, constantly. And actually, kind of a funny story about that was that, like, I mean, I'm not gonna stand up here and pretend to be a doctor and recommend that your kids, your infants drink electrolyte water, because I don't think it's probably recommended. But, like, the one time that Alexander really got a hold of my Re-Lyte and, like, drank a whole bunch before, like, the kid doesn't even, like, we didn't even know he could drink out of a cup. We didn't even know he could hold a cup. But that night he went, like, he peed more pee than we've ever seen him pee. Anyway, sorry, it was very funny. All that to say, we love Redmond, everything they do. We love the Re-Lyte specifically, but.
All right.
Yeah.
Sweet. Back to the question.
Back to this. Wait, if you're going to buy anything from Redmond, the soil tests, the Re-Lyte, the anything, use the code AnivalTrades. You'll get a huge discount. 15%,
and yeah, it's on the screen there.
You know, if you buy a soil test and some Re-Lyte, you'll get free shipping.
Have you ever grown ginger?
I'm currently growing a ginger. Can you show a picture of Alexander? Look at that little muffin.
I mean, I think his hair is...
It's definitely red.
Light brown,
no, it's red. But in answer to your actual question, yes, I have grown ginger, and we love it, and it's great, and it's pretty easy to grow. Actually, it's a you know, it grows from a rhizome. You put it in the ground, and that and turmeric are some of the biggest bushes in our garden midsummer.
Let's see. Thank you for all you do. I learned so much. Even though I have a garden in the past, I didn't learn so much of what you teach. Do you have a degree in horticulture, or do you learn from the life?
I do not.
How do you learn, Annie?
I read a lot. I have several learning disabilities, and I really struggled with, like, learning how to learn early in life. But then when I finally cracked the code, I became obsessed with learning, and I became a voracious reader at the ripe young age of 22 years old.
What's your favorite gardening book?
Well, there's a couple that I would recommend, but probably, so I talk so much about the importance of remineralization of soil and like creating the right balance in your soil. And the best resource, I mean, it's kind of dense and thick, and it's not like a page turner by any means, but The Intelligent Gardener by Steve Solomon is fantastic with understanding why soil needs to be balanced in the first place, and where true soil health, water retention, pest and disease resistance, all that stuff, where that actually comes from, especially when it comes to like growing nutrient dense food that will actually feed our bodies and make us healthier. It basically all starts with having well-balanced soil, and The Intelligent Gardener is great for that. Another book that isn't technically a gardening book, but is just actually generally great for understanding like what a diversified diet we need, and like how animals have selected what nutrients they've needed over time, and how we can learn from animals. Ironically, it was actually studying how I dealt with my cows in their pregnancy that I was finally, after like 12 years of infertility and loss, to like figure out how to use the same things I did for my cows for myself to then like get pregnant and actually successfully have a baby. So there's that. But Fred Provenza wrote a book called Nourishment, which is just absolutely fascinating, and also just like really, really great in general for that. And I feel like, I mean, I could just like keep like Weeds, Guardians of the Soil by Joseph Conover is a great book that helps you understand what weeds are telling you about your soil. So, if you're really, really, really anti doing soil tests, you can learn how to read the weeds in your garden and what they're telling you about your soil. Because every weed that shows up, aside from invasive weeds, are going to tell you like, hey, you've got this issue or that issue. And it's fascinating to look at. But no, I don't have a horticultural disease or degree. I just really, really like reading, and I have a benefit of a semi like photographic memory. Like if I've heard it or read it once, I can probably remember it for forever.
Wildfire Wanderer says, in your experience, Annie, how long does it take seedlings to bounce back from plant transplant shock?
It depends on so many factors that I couldn't really answer that question, except to say that, like, generally speaking, depending on the seed, like I was saying earlier, it like so many things, it's just so much better to direct sow them, to just like put a seed in the ground as opposed to putting a transplant, because the number of weeks that you're set back from transplant shock is usually about equal to the number of weeks old that transplant is in the first place. So unless you have a really, really short growing season and you're super, super like careful about how you do your transplants, I just, it's just, in my experience, best to direct sow as much as possible.
Courtney Gregory says, do you think I could grow strawberries on a pergola? Fingers crossed.
If your interpretation of a pergola is the same as mine, I don't understand how that would work. Like growing up, like isn't a pergola like?
I don't know. Should we Google this?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just.
I don't think a strawberry would grow on that.
Yeah, because I don't.
They're not a vine, but you know what you could grow on a pergola is a kiwi. And the return on your investment is going to be much slower.
Why don't you say how you do strawberries?
Well, there's lots of different ways that I do strawberries, but in-ground is decent. I have stolen an idea from our friends Scott and Brittany Brown, who did their strawberries in rain gutters. That was really brilliant. And they just like put a whole bunch of rain gutters on and basically anchored them to a wall. Could be done to like, a pallet or anything else. And then they just have rows of strawberry plants in those rain gutters. And then the strawberries grow over the sides, which is really great because that keeps the strawberries off the ground, keeps them from rotting in place and everything. The one drawback of that is that like the soil dries out really quickly in those rain gutters. And so you have to, it just requires a lot more watering maintenance. Another really brilliant way to grow strawberries is in the green stock gardens. I have the one that Epic Gardening sells that's just like a bunch of different compartments, and it makes it really tall, and so you can grow a lot of strawberries out of that, and that works great. But I mean, I probably have 2,000 plus strawberry plants.
There's a lot of strawberries.
And I grow them every which way, all the ways.
They are everywhere.
Yes, strawberry fields forever.
Exactly. Here we go. Jake from Landalil Farm asks, how much do you worry about removing all stickers and the tape with the fiber in it from cardboard? Any tips on places to get cardboard? Oh,
great question. I am medium concerned about it, but not that concerned. But here's a pro tip is get your cardboard wet, like either from the rain or with a sprinkler as you're putting it down, and it's super easy to get the tape and stickers off. And if there's
doing that yesterday.
Yep, we do it all the time. And best places to get cardboard is actually furniture stores. But also if you don't have access to cardboard or, like a truck to take big pieces of cardboard anywhere, butcher paper works fantastically well if you do like 2 or 3 layers of it, and you can just get those really long rows, and very conveniently those long little rolls of butcher paper come in the same 2-foot lengths as my garden pathways. So that's really nice to lay down some butcher paper, but don't do it on a windy day, because we were trying to do it like amidst a tornado the other day, and it was a disaster.
It's been windy this year.
Very windy this spring.
Okay, we have a raspberry bush tip question. Alana's Small Farm asks, we have planted raspberry bushes before, but they never produced any raspberries. Any tips?
Very likely either a soil fertility issue, or that they might be like, there's 2 kinds of raspberries. There's ones that produce on the new canes, like the newly grown canes, and there's some kinds of raspberries that produce only on 2nd-year canes. So if you're only if your raspberries are 2nd-year canes and you're cutting your canes down every year, you might be just cutting down the fruiting thing that like needs to fruit. So it's usually a pruning. I mean, just very similar to the apple tree question earlier. Like it's usually a pruning or a soil fertility or a lack of, like the frost took the blooms. But like, I mean, a lot of strawberries are everbearing, so I don't really think that the frost taking the blooms is as big an issue. I will say though that raspberries don't like to have wet feet, so a really good way to plant your raspberries is like on a berm and put the canes up on that berm so that excess water and stuff can roll away. They also really don't like to have too much nitrogen, because a lot of the pests like spider mites and things that can really be issues for raspberries don't like a lot of nitrogen. So if you think about it, like where do blackberries and raspberries tend to grow in the wild? They grow like on the side of highways and, in like areas that there's not a lot of fertility. Like they're kind of one of the first responders that comes into like brushy areas. And those are the places where, other things aren't growing well. A lot of things that have thorns on them really like to struggle, like roses like to struggle. Grapes, lots of the thorny things, like raspberries, really like to struggle. So maybe you're babying them too much.
This is a good question. From the Vine asks, starting your method of lazy gardening this year. We have a rather large garden, so probably won't get it all transferred in one go. What plants do you recommend starting with first to get us going?
Anytime you're starting anything new, I like to start with things that are guaranteed to give you some success, because nothing fuels passion like a little bit of success. And in that, depending on your climate, I would say, like if you're in a kind of colder climate, potatoes are always a great way to go. In a warmer climate like ours, sweet potatoes, like you would have to do something very wrong to screw that up too much, because at least you'll get like lots of vines, and you can eat the vines and you can eat the potatoes. It's also really rewarding if you like sweet potatoes to, eat them, because they taste delicious and delightful. You know, other things like if you look at whatever your growing zone is, look at the things that are most likely to succeed and do a whole bunch of that. Unless, of course, it's shard, and we all know what to do with that. You just scrape it right into the trash.
That is a callback to a short that you made, right?
Yeah.
What hitting shard.
I think I'm gonna make who here would be interested in a shard cookbook that would encapsulate the hundreds of thousands of recipes that I've been offered in response to the video about why I hate shard, that people are like telling me
blank pages or
no. Well, that would be funny. That would be actually really funny. But no, I mean, I probably have, like, conservatively, I've probably gotten at least 1,500 to 2,000 shard recipes from angry shard supporters.
Half of them have bacon.
That's probably true. But here's the thing. You know what? If you have to add bacon to something to make it taste good,
You've already failed.
Imagine what how good that bacon would taste before you put the shard in it. I'm just like, we're a wholesome channel, so I'm not going to lean too hard into this, but shard rhymes with something that is basically what it tastes like.
Oh yeah. A grape question. Are you familiar with grapes? I'm clearing brush and uncovered several. Can I chop them back now? Maybe talk about
it depends.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends on what kind of grapes you have, because I discovered after a couple of years here in Tennessee that not all of the grapes in this area are actually grapes. Some of them are pepper vines, which look a lot like grapes and produce grape-like things that are not in fact grapes. But if you have like wild grapes like muscadines or grapes that are like planted varieties that are delicious to eat, grapes love to be pruned. Grapes are one of those things that actually really likes to struggle. And every year you want to prune your grape back to basically 2 strands. You want to have, the basic root system, and then you want to have 2 canes that come out of it, and you prune all the rest back. And as someone who really is attached to the positive growth that I see on my plants, because I'm like, man, so much energy and time and nutrients went into creating this foliage that I want to keep every single little thing. But I've learned, just like in life, sometimes you got to prune to get new growth.
There you go. Do you secretly have a favorite animal on the farm? Oh, you could talk about
my dad.
Your dad.
Just kidding.
You can talk about the baby tiny calf.
Yes.
Smallest calf.
I do, and it's not a secret. There's a couple animals that it's like if I'm with them, then they're my favorite, which I feel like is a classic parenting thing. My mom would always say, like, you're my favorite child, but we would always hear her saying that to the other ones too. So we're like, come on, which one actually is your favorite? And I would say that that's probably the case here too. Howdy and Bella the donkeys have been solid favorites for a very long time, but I will honestly tell you that when I'm with Johnny, my dog, he's also my favorite, and definitely more of my favorite than Howdy and Bella sometimes, because they can be naughty. But also my real favorite animal is my cows. The goose, this is a classic moment to use this clip. That goose nearly met her end the other day. I was so fed up with that stupid goose the other day that I was almost about to be done with it. But that's Sweet Bella, one of my precious donkeys, and she's amazing. The donkeys are great, but also the dairy cows are the best. And since we're sitting here watching a clip of her giving shiatsu to my donkey, of a goose giving a donkey shiatsu massage, there is that. I will tell you that the alpacas behind them are my least favorites. So there's that.
Which we talked about earlier.
Which we've talked about.
Maybe leaving us soon.
Hopefully. But, and Lucy the pig is pretty funny sometimes, but also kind of is genuinely useless, except for the fact that sometimes she helps me stir my compost, and like that's sometimes useful. But yeah, no, it's always a toss up between Johnny, my dog, Howdy and Bella the donkeys, all of the cows, but specific cows more than others, and Eugene the house bunny, who's also really precious, and I love her a lot. But yeah, I will definitely say that like Cheddar is by far my favorite cow. She's the best.
Tell us about the calf, though.
Okay, so there was the other day, cows always have babies in the worst possible time. Like they are extremely good at being like, what's the weather forecast this week? Is there a tornado? Is there an ice storm? Is there, some of 40 other awful Tennessee things that could happen right now? That would be a good time to poop out a baby. And so, true to form, one of my first time heifers, which is already a very, very small cow, had a unbelievably tiny baby cow the other day in the middle of an ice storm, like an idiot. And then she wouldn't let it nurse. And so I had to carry that tiny, thankfully, it is legitimately the tiniest calf I have ever and probably will ever see again in my entire life. Totally healthy, full term, fine now, thanks to me, because that dumb mom would have probably killed it. But anyway, during the middle of an awful storm, I stood outside with no coat and no hat for 4 hours while I tried to let the mom do her job, and she then didn't. So then I brought the calf back to my office. Mercifully, he was very, very light because I had to carry him 14 acres, like by foot. And I brought him into my office and gave him colostrum because you always want to have colostrum on hand. Or what are you doing with this clip? Can you show the clip of the calf?
Okay.
Anyway, Alexander got to hang out with a baby calf in my office because that dumb mom tried to, unalive her calf. And mercifully, he's very healthy now, very happy. He's having the zoomies in the field all the time. Was this the right clip? I thought that was like 41 seconds long.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
There he goes.
Very cute. Alexander loves cows more than I do, which is actually the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Everything old is new again in the eyes of a baby.
It's a very small cat.
It's so small. I mean, you can't really tell because our son is, also small, but also enormous for his size. For his age. But yeah, very small. It weighs like 25 pounds. I will say that, at the dairy the other day, we had like a 60-pound calf born. So you do the math. Yeah, he's very, very cute. Very small, very great. Alexander is loving it. Also, today, Alexander was like kind of throwing a fit in the middle of the field while we were feeding the cows. And he didn't realize it, but there was literally 6 calves all gathered around him. And all of a sudden, like as he's in the middle of throwing a fit, he like looks up and he's like, oh, look at all this. And then he reaches out to pet them, and it was very, very cute. And he's the best thing ever. So anyways,
thanks for looking at our child.
Thanks for looking at our baby calf and Alexander.
We like him. All right. Garden questions.
Do we still sell meat or this is why Adam reads them.
So Sabrine asks, do you still sell milk and beef and other farm things?
Absolutely. If you're in Nashville, if you'd like to join our herd share, we still have some spring spots available. We would love to have you come buy our milk. We also now have a farm store, which is open on Tuesday afternoons and Saturday daytimes, and also sell the dairy and the meat at multiple farmers markets. So if you're interested, get it. It's great. It's the best.
How do they find it?
Available. bellsbenfarms.com. Or maybe org. Hold on. I'm really bad at technology. I'm going to just double check really quick. Adam, you talk about something for a second while I find out how to run my own business.
Well, I'm looking at a bunch of gardening questions. Have you ever planted watermelon?
Ah, yes. It's bellsbenfarms.com/dairy is for the dairy, but bellsbenfarms.com will get you to all the things you need to know. Plus the information about the square dances, which are really fun.
That's
okay,
right.
Great question about the watermelon. I am so glad you asked. And of course, because even though I now drink water, related water, I do still eat a watermelon a day all summer long to keep the doctor away, sometimes 2 to 5 watermelons per day. And in that, yes, I grow like 9 or 10 different varieties of watermelon, and some of them are more delicious and prolific than others.
Why can't you plant onions with snap peas? Asks Amanda.
That is a great question, and the answer is probably going to make some people angry. You actually fully can plant pretty much anything with everything. And that is if you have well-balanced, healthy soil. There are a lot of planting no-nos and things that people who are trying to sell you stuff are trying to make more complicated than they are. In all reality, if you want to have the easiest time and you don't know what's going on with your soil and things, you can follow some of those rules, and I might recommend it because, again, I want you to have success from the beginning. But alums, things in the onion family, excuse me, sometimes don't play well with other plants because a lot of plants, like, a great example is a walnut tree or sunflowers will release chemical compounds in and around themselves to discourage the growth of other plants around them. Because every plant needs the same 3 things. They need access to nutrients, access to water, and access to sunlight. And if you have a whole bunch of plants growing up and around then you can't you're going to have to compete a lot harder for access to those things. So some plants do have a natural defense system against that. But I have and continue to, I'm a real contrarian, and I break all of those rules all the time to show you that you can, because the reality is, if your soil is healthy, everyone says don't use walnut in your garden. That is such a joke. I am a woodworker. I basically build all my furniture out of walnut. I have used so much walnut in and around my garden. We have walnut trees all around our garden. Supposedly it's like impossible to grow things in the nightshade family within the drip line of a walnut tree. I literally, just to prove people wrong, grew a whole bunch of tomatoes in the drip line of a walnut tree, just to show you how much it doesn't matter. Same thing with soil pH. It really doesn't matter as much as people think it does if your soil is well balanced.
Good Granny 1 asks, what would be the easiest way to move a 6 by 6 foot fig to transplant?
One shovel at a time. How do you eat an elephant?
Transplant question.
Yes, that's the answer. It's okay. Figs are.
I think they're asking.
How?
Yeah.
Well, use a shovel and dig it up. But this would be the time. I would suggest doing it now before the foliage starts to pop, because anytime, if you think about what plants need, anything that's happening above the soil, you need equal amount of root situations happening below the soil. So what I do with all my figs every year is I cut them kind of pretty close down to the ground to encourage new fresh growth up from the plant. But it wouldn't be able to put that new fresh growth up if it didn't have a good root structure. So similarly, you don't want to transplant your fig in the middle of the summer when there's tons of foliage growing up top, there's tons of leaves and everything, and then you're disturbing the roots, and there's so much green stuff up top that there's very little root to support. But I literally will propagate figs by pruning them and sticking the stick into the ground. And we have pretty good healthy soil that stays pretty moist, so that tends to work. 90% of the figs that I've transplanted have done great. But you want to get as much of the root as you can. I will say, though, that we also, all the fig stuff that we're doing here started with one huge fig bush that was up on the hillside that never actually produced any figs because it wasn't being pruned and all these other things. But all I did, I took my tractor and I just grabbed the bucket and scooped up a part of the fig amalgamation and just dumped it over somewhere else to give the main figs a little bit more room to breathe and grow. and both of them have thrived.
She says she tried digging around and strapping a toe strap to it without success.
Well, they do have really deep roots, and especially if it's that well established. But what you like, I mean, I would just if I could get out my front door right now, I'd go get a special shovel. But like those long shovels are really good. Like not like, you know, the little triangle one, but like the long ones are good at like kind of getting down a little bit deeper and then using them to like sever the root structures. Cause I think like, I don't know if they make a taproot. I can't actually remember at the moment, but like, I do know that I'm constantly digging up figs because hilariously this last year to try to like make a little obstacle course for my dogs to like keep them out of one of my garden beds that they kept digging up, I just shoved a bunch of fig branches that I clipped off my fig tree into, and then all of those turned into huge fig bushes. So yeah, all that to say, just like get as much of the roots as you can, like chop it off, like use your shovel, like kick it, karate kick it really hard, like get as much as you can, but like just remember that if you then clip what's above the soil really down low, you don't have to have gotten very much of the root structure to be able to propagate what you've got.
What veggies can you grow in the shade?
So many, especially during the summertime, like all of the cool season crops. I have all of my little hoopty hoops that grow grapes on them.
They're fence panels.
Yeah, cattle panels.
Cattle panel, yeah.
That are bent between 4 posts. But all of those make it so that the afternoon sun, which is the hottest sun, is actually shaded during the hot part of the summer. And then all the garden beds behind where those grapes are growing is a great place to grow things like lettuce and, you know, brassicas, cool season crops. You can like limp your peas along a little bit longer, give peas a chance. You know, a lot of them. Leafy vegetables can often do a lot better in the shade, but like not all shade, because if you're thinking about what is any greenery, it's a solar panel to send energy to the roots, and leafy things have really small root systems, so like they do need some sun to be able to do the things.
Will asked, does dog dung benefit my garden anyway? I don't think I've ever heard it referred to as dog dung.
I would highly recommend you compost it extremely well, because dog dung is actually going to be very toxic to you and your garden if not composted correctly, because there's a lot of pathogens. A good rule of thumb is to think about any poop that comes from things that eat vegetables exclusively is pretty safe, even if you don't really understand how soil science or composting works. But anything that eats meat is something that you really want to get into the science of composting well before you start, you know, picking a leaf of lettuce that was grown directly next to a dog turd.
That's a good way to put it.
And I also just like really don't like any meat eaters' turds in my garden, because I don't ever remember to wash my vegetables before I eat them. So
how is your bunny? I'm assuming we're talking about Eugene.
Sweet Eugene,
who was a staple of our live streams for many months until Alexander came along. And I feel like Eugene's, you know, he's not in the live streams anymore. She.
We've been debating whether we should bring Eugene back down to the office, which is where we are right now, in the goat barn, because, you know, she really does brighten up our live streams live.
So yeah, maybe we will.
But anyway, she's doing great. Alexander is obsessed with her, and it's very, very cute. He will not go to bed without opening and closing her cage 100 times and kissing her goodnight. Oh, I like this. I like this one.
Oh, how do you plan your garden? I struggle to stay on track with succession planting sometimes, asks Maeve Nadalin.
Adam, why did you laugh when you said that?
I want to hear your answer first before I put my foot in my mouth.
Okay, well, the quick answer is actually Why don't you put your foot in your mouth while I go get a quick visual aid? I'll be right back.
Where are you going?
I'm just getting the visual aid.
Okay. Well, my foot in my mouth answer was going to be that I suspect she's doing not a ton of planning. And that she is improvising like a jazz trumpeter. Just kind of going with the flow, bebopping around.
Well, thank you for that generous assessment.
Is that an accurate picture of what you do, Annie?
Yes and no. I will say that I highly recommend you get one of these photo sorting devices from your local arts and crafts store, like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. I actually think this is from Hobby Lobby. Anyway, all of the vegetables are sorted in here by the order in which you plant them. And they reappear throughout the gardening season when it's time to replant them. So succession planting. And yes, so I would recommend this. This is helpful. I will say that Adam is also correct with his assessment about the way that I tend to plan a lot of things. But I will also say that while everything I did used to be a lot more chaotic, now it's a lot less chaotic because mostly I just get really bummed when I forget to plant things that I really like and things like that. Plus, because gardening was always a hilarious hobby for me prior. And then somehow my furniture business somehow turned into now we make gardening content. So I am thinking about the garden on a much more regular basis than before.
Yeah, yes, for sure.
That said, though, if you have an iPhone, a really great tool that I use a lot is the Reminders app. So, for example, right now I have multiple reminders that will pop up on a regular basis that say, hey, check underneath the boards where your carrots are germinating to see, so it starts at day 4 that I've planted them. And then it keeps reminding me every day at that same time to check to see if the seeds have germinated, if it's time to remove the board or not. Similarly, I have pawpaw seeds that are stratifying in the fridge and that needed 90 days. And so as if I was going to remember when 90 days from when I put them in there was going to happen. So I have a reminder on my phone that pops up. Similarly, every time I plant cucumber seeds, I just do, hey, in 2 weeks, remind me to plant these again so that there's, more cucumbers coming. And that really helps because it's a reminder outside myself.
Oh, you're going to love this. Tips for wine cap mushroom spawn. Need to worry about late frost or freeze?
Adam, why would you say, what motivated that comment? This is funny.
Because you love talking about mushrooms. And we were just talking about this yesterday when we were filming the video, but I observed that you will take any opportunity to go down a rabbit trail about mushrooms.
Intentionally or otherwise.
It's like all roads lead to Rome, but it's like all roads lead to mushrooms.
That's true. When it comes to gardening, I would say that is absolutely true. Adam has a physical eye roll that happens the minute that I mention, if I dare breathe the word mycelium, he's like, oh God. I can see it in his whole body. Anyway, all that to say, mushrooms, one of my favorite things to talk about. In fact, the thing I will be talking about at the Modern Homesteading Conference.
I just want to say, if I didn't edit out some of these sequences about mushrooms, there would be a mushroom segment in every video.
A 45-minute long.
Every video would have a 7-minute sequence on mushrooms, even if it was about alpacas.
It probably should.
It would just somehow you would find a way to segue into mycelium.
Have you heard the good news about what mycelium can do for your garden?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a great question. Tips for wine cap mushroom spawn. The answer to your question is wine cap mushroom spawn is the mushrooms that I recommend that you plant in your garden, above all else, because for a couple reasons. First, because you can't just plant lion's mane or like any random mushroom in your garden and expect it to grow actual lion's mane mushrooms or oyster mushrooms or anything else, because those mushrooms do not create edible mushrooms in the substrate or the things that are in your garden. Wine cap mushrooms, however, do actually create delicious wine cap mushrooms that are edible and a great protein source in your pathways, in your garden beds, like all these other things. And they grow in and on and around all of the things that actually are in and on and around your garden. So like, whereas lion's mane mushrooms need to be put into a log that is not yet decomposed, wine cap mushrooms can grow in wood chips or in straw, in a lot of kinds of decaying organic matter. The other really cool thing about wine cap mushroom spawn is that wine caps are very aggressive mushrooms, so they will take over, like as long as you're giving them enough carbohydrates to eat, they will take over and spread way faster and way more successfully than any other mushroom. So like if you have a pile of mulch in your yard, within like 3 to 5 days, it will eventually get colonized by some kind of fungus. And most of those funguses are more aggressive than any actual mushrooms you would actually want in your garden. Whereas wine cap spawn is going to be like the most aggressive of all of them. All that to say that you can actually just be very willy-nilly with your wine cap mushroom spawn. You just want to, it doesn't matter about frost or freeze or anything else. If you put the little like mushroom feet, the little white hairs, you can get them in bags online. Actually, I just find, like, I've been talking about North Spore mushrooms forever, and they just sent me a message saying, like, you can now get a discount if you order anything from northsporemushrooms.com by using the code AnivalTrades. All that to say, though, that if you take, like, a bag of wine cap mushroom spawn, that's usually enough for most people's gardens, and you just crumple up all of the little chips and willy-nilly toss it around your garden and then cover it up with some sort of mulch, some sort of, like, straw, or like arborist chips or anything else, you're going to get mushrooms. And far more importantly, you're going to get nutrient sharing and water retention. And the water retention that comes from a nice white carpet of mycelium in your garden is unmatched by any other form of, anything. So definitely would recommend. 10 out of 10. What was the question?
It's on the screen.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody asked if you can eat them.
Yes, they're delicious.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Adam doesn't like mushrooms, which is insane because I grow thousands of pounds of mushrooms every year.
It's not that I don't like them. I'm picky with mushrooms. I'm not going to eat all of them. Anyways. Also, there's something about, like, if it's coming from the woods, it's kind of like, I don't know. There's like a little mental block.
I will also say that Adam used to not eat our own chicken eggs because he preferred the ones from the grocery store. So,
I mean, maybe like at one point in my life, it's not like that right now. Maybe chat, maybe back me up. Eating mushrooms from the woods is a little bit of a mental challenge. Sure,
if you don't trust the sorcerer who found them in the woods for you, because, like, a lot of mushies could kill you. So
yeah,
that's why I serve them to you first. Just kidding.
If I die mysteriously, then you'll hear.
Well, that's from me poisoning your oatmeal, not from the mushrooms.
How do you keep animals out of raised beds, specifically cats?
Oh, electric wire, and my dogs eat them.
They eat cats?
I mean,
well, this really
unofficially
took a dark turn. Anyways,
but electric wire is the answer. I run an electric line with a solar charger around the bottom and the top of my garden, and it seems to keep them out, along with my dogs.
Yes, your dogs don't like cats.
My dogs really don't like cats. They like my cats, but some, I think it's kind of widely known now that I have a bit of a bleeding heart. And so, like, some people will literally just throw animals, like, over our fence. And unfortunately, because we have livestock guardian dogs, they see any animal they don't know as a threat. So like someone threw a cat over the fence, and that was that.
Yeah, don't throw cats over our fence.
Or roosters.
Yeah, some people are saying you should do a mushrooms mini series.
I wholeheartily agree. However,
no, we should. I agree. It's just
Can I get that in writing?
I mean, I'd love to do that. I think that'd be awesome.
Hey, well then this is a good question. Then what do you want to know about mushrooms? Because
yeah, I mean, I guess if we did do a series, what is interesting to you guys?
Your world is my oyster mushroom. Let me know.
Favorite type of trellis/cage for tomatoes. Also, would you ever consider making individual videos that each focus on certain vegetables, when to plant, how to care for them, when to harvest? We did do a sweet potato.
Yeah, we did a video like that about sweet potatoes. But here's the thing. We've gone back and forth about this topic a lot because the reality is, though we do, like, I mean, you know, I can non-humbly say that, like, I know a lot about gardening, maybe even more than most people who are making videos online. But that said, though, we really don't, we like hesitate to make videos about anything that it's like, if the information's already there and it's done well, like we don't want to just add to the noise. We really value people's time and attention. And so we don't want to make a video that's already been done really well. Like Grow Veg, who we love, makes really, really good videos that are vegetable vegetable specific. And it's like, unless there's something that's missing there that we would have to add, which very seldom would that be the case, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. We more like kind of lean into, like, the other thing too is that you know, because I'm a very unique human being, I think like I don't tend to shine when I'm trying to be overly educational. Like,
well, I mean, we've always said we don't want to make videos that you could just Google.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's just not, we don't feel like we're adding a ton of value to the noise. We don't want to add a bunch of noise to the world for no reason, you know. Like,
time and attention is so valuable. Like, we only have so many hours on this planet, and like both we don't want to waste our time making stuff that isn't a huge value add, and we also don't want to waste your time with videos that, you know, you could watch from someone else, because we like our other gardening friends that are making great videos. We don't want to take away from that either.
When I feel like with like the sweet potatoes, you kind of had your own take on it.
Totally.
Where, you know, it was like a lazy take. It was like basically you did nothing.
Yeah. I can tell you how to grow 400 pounds of sweet potatoes, basically not lifting a finger, because I planted them while like 9 months pregnant and did nothing to maintain them. And then like after Alex, I literally ate them for breakfast today. Alexander and I harvested them together when he was like a 3-month-old potato himself.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, if we have a unique take on like how to do something, either you like kind of in the lazy gardening way, then I think maybe we're interested in that. But otherwise,
totally, I
don't think we'll do a step-by-step on how to do
like cucumbers. Grow Veg already did a great job on that one.
He's great with that stuff.
And then in answer to your question about type of trellis or cage for tomatoes, I love that you asked for favorite trellis, because there is no tomato cage that should be used for tomatoes, because tomato cages inherently, like those round ones, they're great for growing cucumbers, fantastic for keeping squash bugs off of your zucchini. Use those to trellis your zucchini leaves so that they're not touching the ground, so you have less squash bug pressure. But don't use a round cage for tomatoes, even though you have in fact seen me doing it in my videos in the past, but that's literally from sheer laziness and pregnancy. But I really like using cattle panels, like in an A-frame for tomatoes, or, you know, if you want to string them up and do all that stuff. With everything, I'm always like, I have so many other things going on besides our garden. Yeah, we talk about the garden a lot on this channel, but like, you know, I have, you know, a full-time job, like a business, like the dairy business, in addition, the cows, the furniture stuff, like we're raising a baby, like I don't want to spend 100% of my time in the garden, so I don't. So I'm always looking for the easiest, best, and where those things can converge. And with that, for me, having an A-frame thing that can support your tomatoes as they grow is easy.
I mean, I think that's the whole point of the channel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, is to see how we can help you people grow healthy food for their family, like with like the lowest amount of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, in effort.
Yeah, and money. I mean, like we started when I planted our first garden, it was because like most of our food was coming from the food bank, and it was tough to put gas in the car. And so, I was like, surely there has to be a better way, Kevin. Well, there was. I scrounged around in our neighborhood, found some scrap wood to make some raised beds, went to our local horse farm and filled up plastic garbage bags with manure, put them in the back of Adam's car and brought him home. And there you had it.
Abram asks, there's so much advice online about when to plant each plant. How do you know which advice to listen to?
I love that question. Here's the thing. For lazy gardening to work, the answer is almost always 2 weeks after anyone will tell you. Like, if you try to be the early bird, like there are so many issues that will probably happen. I always say, like, I literally used to, yeah, I literally used to like sit outside of Home Depot on the first sunny day and just like watch how many people would come out with their tomato plants feeling so proud. And I'm just like, well, I hope you enjoyed buying those the first time, because you're going to be back here in a month when you're actually supposed to plant them. Like, the best thing I could tell you is, some of us, I mean, I grew up in Montana, so I understand what it's like to have an insanely short growing season. And with that, you do have to take a few more risks and things like that. But if you have any flexibility in your growing season at all, the best tip I can give you as a lazy gardener is wait until long after all your neighbors are planting their plants and plant a few weeks after that. Because when you put like a tomato, for example, you can plant your tomatoes into the ground when the soil is 50 degrees, and you will probably ultimately get some tomatoes. You might even get a few tomatoes earlier than everyone else. But the risk that you're doing when you're putting a tomato that wants 70 degree soil into 50 degree soil is that you're going to have a plant that grows really slowly, and that may or may not like be eventually stunted by that early planting. And what will happen then is pests and diseases thrive on unhealthy plants. Like, if you are dealing with like major infestations of things in your soil, first of all, I mean, I always say do a soil test, because it's probably starting in your soil. But the next thing is that if you're planting things too early, you're creating a veritable buffet for pests and diseases. And those pests and diseases will come in and munch on your sad, cold, unhealthy plants that you planted too early. They'll lay their eggs in there. They'll like proliferate the funguses and the other diseases that, and then those things will plague the rest of your garden. They will multiply on those early season plants. And then you're going to have issues in your garden for the rest of the season. Far better to procrastinate a little bit, lean into those good procrastination habits and put things in a little later. And like, the later in the season you go, the more hours of sunlight we all have. And the sun, like we say this all the time, leaves on our plants are solar panels to capture the sun's energy and to put it into a healthy root system. And the more sunlight hours there are, the more foliage can grow, the faster it'll grow, the healthier it'll grow. And ultimately, like, you might have a few pests and diseases like nibbling at your plants. But because there's so many more daylight hours or sun hours for your plant to grow more foliage, it can recover from that pest and disease pressure faster. And so then those pests and disease don't really have an opportunity to take a foothold on a really unhealthy plant and then plague you for the rest of the summer. Because, I mean, hilariously, the best example of this is like, I always notice that outside my garden, where like I haven't done any, like, I don't have mushroom spawn. I don't have, I haven't worked on improving the soil. So outside my garden, it's basically like a desert wasteland. And there are a bunch of weeds that do grow up. So things like dock will grow up because they're things that grow in really poor, crappy soil. But those plants outside the garden will be covered in aphids because those are the most unhealthy plants in the area that those aphids can come and munch on and lay eggs in and have babies in and do really well. But I almost never see any aphids in my actual garden. And so, anyway.
You want to answer?
The advice is wait till later.
You want that one?
Oh, yes. Great. I love that question.
Like that question?
Yes.
Okay.
Is gardening cheaper than buying organic produce? And the answer to that question is it depends. It
definitely can be.
It can be. I mean, for us, significantly in some regards. For a lot of people, there's a book called The $64 Tomato that is a great just kind of play on how much money people will spend to be able to grow a handful of tomatoes in their backyard. And so, again, we talk about this a lot, but a huge piece of why I like to make the videos that we make is because I know what it's like to not know where your next meal is going to come from, and I want to show you how you can do it the easy, lazy way, the free way, and then also if there is more, if it's just for the joy of it, okay, this is the money way. But there's a balance to be found there, because the one thing that I will say, I see more homesteaders really, or backyard gardeners, farmers, whatever, not valuing their own time, and then thinking that things are cheaper or free or whatever else, but spending, the few hours that they have at the end of the day that they maybe could and maybe should be spending doing other things that are more life-giving than gardening or whatever else. And so anyway, I always just tell people, examine your reasoning for doing anything. Always have some regular check-ins. Is this still worth it? Why am I doing this? Why do I feel like I need to do it? Fear is never a very good motivator long term. So, check in with that.
Yeah. Keep going.
Oh, it can be. If you watch our video, Start a Lazy Garden from Scratch, it'll show you how to start a garden that will guaranteed produce a lot of food for little input. And again, like we've said earlier, you can focus on those crops that, if you look in what's going to really thrive in your area and you focus on those things, if growing calories for your family is what's most important, focus on what's going to do well and plant a lot of that. We also have a video that we did with our friends, Cody and Michelle, More Than Farmers. And it's called how this family grows, 100% of their garden produce on 1/8 of an acre or something like that.
Yeah.
And Michelle has so much good information in that video about, if it's financial motivations that are fueling your gardening needs, focus on the number of calories you can grow in the least amount of square feet.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I'll add is it's everything about farming or gardening, a lot of it is economies of scale, and you really need to get to a certain scale to actually make it cheaper. It doesn't have to be a huge factory farm, but I think More Than Farmers, Michelle and Cody, is a good example of they've reached a scale on a lot of their produce that is making it cheaper for them. And I feel like they're a really good example of how you can do it cheaper.
Yeah. I will also very honestly tell you that if you've watched my gardening tours, those are not necessarily a good example of how to grow, based on what Adam just said. Those are not an example, often those are very rarely an example of how to grow things in the cheapest way possible, because a lot of the garden tours for us are focusing on some of the like kind of insane horticultural experiments that I'm doing, that I do those things to like for my own sanity. And we can afford for me to do those things instead of growing 100% of our food, because my business partner's husband grows vegetables for a CSA the same way that I would. If something doesn't work out in our garden, our entire our entire food system doesn't collapse, because I can literally just be like, hey, Eric, I decided to plant.
Well, yeah, and your inputs to the main farm is the dairy business,
totally.
The cows, and that's a big focus for us is the
cows. Yeah.
But if you take that out of the equation, and if this was just trying to grow food for us, the garden would be looking a lot different.
Yeah, we'd be doing things a lot differently. I will say that this year we are doing things a lot differently too, actually, literally because just as we're raising Alexander, we want to do things a little bit differently too. Just it meant so much to me to plant the sweet potatoes for him before he was born, and then now as he started eating food, knowing how much he loves them, he and I picked them together, that was so meaningful to me, that again, on the kind of joy scale.
But yeah. But to bring it around, you can use the principles of lazy gardening to accomplish that.
Oh, 100,000%.
So it's just we're not going to that end with the methods.
Yeah, a lot of the things that you'll see in the lazy gardening videos, there's I have sacrificed space that we could be growing a cash crop for our family, and instead am growing 17 different varieties of popcorn and some pawpaws, because it's we both work full time, and so the joy that we get from the garden is just as important as the actual production. And again, we have a source for that food. And for me too, as someone asked earlier, how do I know so much about gardening? It's literally because I am so obsessed with trying things, and the best way to learn anything is to try, fail, and then learn what you failed at and try again. And so I know how to grow chard. I do it really well. It still tastes like crap.
Totally. This is the third time I've seen this comment. That is...
Oh, it's Emily's foot. And she's... No, don't.
Sorry. She's helping us with the comments and sorting everything. She's our neighbor and friend. So.
Emily and her husband, Chris, were the saviors of the farm when Alexander was born, and I had to take 4 months off of walking. Because of his enormous head. Take that to mean whatever you want.
Anywho. Oh, there goes the dog's barking.
The dog, well, Johnny's barking at the goose who's sitting outside of his enclosure yelling at him.
So Kitty Yelsub, if making huge compost pile, shade or full sun?
When it comes to compost, it does not matter whether it's in the sun or the shade, because the heat for the compost pile does not come from the external sources. It comes from the internal sources. Not to toot my own horn, but this was one very topic specific video that I thought was missing from the internet. And I think that it is one of the most clear and concise composting videos. It's called A Beginner's Guide to Composting. It's on our channel, and it was the first video where
is that the easy compost one?
Yeah,
There's 2 of them.
Well, the second one is a follow-up on it, but the first one is the Beginner's Guide to Compost.
Okay.
And it was the first video where I actually used an analogy, and now I think we really focus on using analogies in our gardening things, which actually, hoity-toity people often are like, well, what are you trying to dumb it down? Do you not actually know what it's called? And it's no, I'm literally trying to explain complex topics to people who have never encountered these before. All I have to say, Beginner's Guide to Compost, doesn't matter if it's in full shade or full sun. Put the right things in your compost pile, build your compost house the right way, and it generates its own heat and does its own thing.
Christy Stewart asks, she's terrified it's going to catch fire.
Does
that actually happen?
It has probably happened, but actually I think when you're hearing about that, it's like in commercial compost piles, like with city compost, where they're putting things that shouldn't be in the compost, and they're combusting because of things that aren't. I mean, listen, I'm obsessed with fire. Nearly burned the farm down for about the 50th time earlier today, not because of compost ever. And I have 20 to 30 compost piles that are like experiments going at any given moment. And there's wood chips everywhere. If there was going to be a fire, there would have been. But check out that video. I genuinely think if a compost pile is being managed correctly, it's too wet to be able to catch fire. And it's too wet to be able to get hot enough that it would catch fire.
Wow. This is an old comment, but have you ever considered using a high tunnel?
I have.
For year round growing? I think we're going to get one.
Well, yes. We have had the greenhouse supplies sitting behind the school for 4 years, waiting to be assembled. And just like the school, it's taking its sweet time to get there. But yeah, I will say, though, that my initial excitement for having a high tunnel to grow year round, we're absolutely going to do it. And I'm also going to use geothermal heat regulation to make it even more stable. But as we've been leaning harder and harder into the farming stuff, I've also really, really enjoyed the 3 months off to be able to pretend like I still build furniture and things like that.
That is a good point. Mongoose5933 asks, ever had any issues with mealybugs, and how did you take care of them?
With just about any pest, it's the answer is in the soil. Start with healthy soil, plant at the right time, and you probably will not have the issues that you previously had. If you're having issues with any pest that just is relentless, it's almost always because of a soil imbalance, and it can be fairly easily fixed by rebalancing your soil. I will say that people who use chemical fertilizers and who till every year have way more pest and disease issues because, if you think about what fertilizer is basically like candy for our plants. If you give a kid candy, it's a great way to, get him to be quiet and get a momentary boost of energy. But, if a kid only ever eats candy, it's going to be very unhealthy. It's going to have issues with, bone health, bone density. It's going to get sick all the time. Plants are the exact same way. They want to have a well-balanced diet. And if you give them that, they have a good immune system and can fight off pests and diseases. But yeah, usually infestations of anything are because you either have unhealthy soil, you planted at at the wrong time of the season, and or you have things gathered too closely together. And so, create a little airflow, do a soil test. I mean, we also have a video that is kind of silly, but also does have a lot of actual tips in it about how to deal with pests. One of my favorite tips, which a lot of people turn their nose up at, but I love using my vacuum cleaner, my portable vacuum cleaner, to just zoom by my plants early in the season, in case early squash bugs are laying their eggs or whatever else, and just kind of suck those guys up. And it works. And there's a lot of other tips in it. What's that video called?
Get rid of pests in the garden the lazy way.
There it is.
Hi to both of you, says Lisa Callahan. We are also former Washingtonians. We just moved again in Tennessee. I am trying to get my garden going, but lack compost. I just started a pile on Sunday. Suggestions for topsoil and compost.
The best suggestion I can give you is watch that video, because the beginner's guide to compost, it shows you how to make compost in 18 days. And so 18 days from now, you could have your very own ready to use compost. And that's, I mean, you know, you can get compost from other people and things like that. But as I feel like I'm getting more and more like snooty about compost the longer that I do this, like I almost like at this point, like, because I test everything before I put it in my garden. I've gotten some compost. In fact, I recently got some worm compost that, like, it was a disaster. Like, I would never use that again. Like, I use my own, but like I got some from someone and I was like, oh, I just wonder what's going on here. Anyway, yeah, making your own compost is especially in Tennessee. Right now, the grass is growing like crazy. You could go outside with a weed eater and a rake and like get enough grass, like, and, you know, clover and dock and sorrel and other things that are growing, dead nettle, chicory, all those things that are like native weeds that are growing up. Just mow them down with your weed eater, rake them up, and then put them with some sticks or leaves or compost, or if you can get an arborist to drop off some wood chips from our ice apocalypse storm cleanup that's been going on. Like, yeah, you can have compost in 18 days and it'll be good to go. Also, if our alpaca situation doesn't work out on Tuesday, alpaca poop can be used straight from tushy to table. Put it right in your garden.
For all the
don't have to
compost
it.
Alpacas, maybe there's a few.
Bunny poop is great. Eugene, like my rhubarb extravaganza out there is thanks to Eugene's tushy TM. It always feels weird when there's a silence after a comment like that.
Horse manure.
Oh, this is great.
Serene Theta asks, is horse manure okay to use in compost? And do we need to make sure they have not had certain meds like dewormer? If yes, what should we look out for to avoid?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. I love that question. A far bigger concern than the dewormer stuff, which is like, you know, we always are like, what's the lesser of evils in things? But with horse manure or, you know, donkey manure or anything specifically, one thing to really look out for is that so much hay and straw these days is being grown with glyphosate, which is a broadleaf herbicide, also known as Roundup. And that will pass through their bodies and their tushies, and the glyphosate will remain. And so anytime you're getting manure from a horse barn, or if you're using straw in your garden or hay as a mulch in your garden, a really great tip is to take, you know, a few of those poos, or, you know, like a handful of the poo, and you know, a handful of that straw or whatever else. Plant some beans, because beans are broadleaf vegetables, and water them with water from that is like soaked with the poo or the straw or whatever else that you're like wanting to test for. And if the beans grow normally, you know that that's safe manure and safe straw to use in your garden. And if the beans grow all scraggly and weird, then yeah, don't use it, because that stuff can stay in your garden and like make it impossible to grow all kinds of things for like 5 years.
Can we find your videos on Facebook or YouTube?
Yes.
That's a good question.
Both. I will say that the videos on Facebook are edited, shorter versions of our YouTube videos, and we don't actually edit them ourselves. We use a service that edits them. And so, like, though they do
some of them.
Yeah, well, not all of them, but yeah, some of them. But I will say that, like, you know, if there's like really loud music or on them and stuff, like, go watch them on YouTube, because they're probably much more peaceful on
they're great
YouTube.
On Facebook.
They're great.
But I would just say, like, you'll get the original edit on YouTube.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we watch them all, so like if there's anything that's like egregiously wrong or anything like that, yeah, they're great. But yeah, just like if you really want to know the information and you saw something that was interesting on Facebook and you still have questions, like go look for that same video on YouTube, because chances are
longer.
Yeah, because the Facebook videos tend to be like 3 to 5 minutes, and they're usually pulled from a 35+ minute video on YouTube that really has all of the background information. And so like a really good example is like there's a sauerkraut video that like just came out, and like the ratios of salt to vegetable were not included in the short edit, but they were included in the YouTube video. So it was like, well, if you're looking for like some specific, my goodness, that goose is really tormenting the dogs back there. Let me just quickly
Well.
Oh, we only have 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Oh, look at us. Okay. Oh my gosh.
Let me pick a couple more questions.
Yes.
Oh,
someone says, wait, should I return my worm compost? I live in a townhouse. No. Someone gave me some worm compost that was not done correctly, and it had glyphosate in it. That was the whole thing. Worm compost is amazing, and it's great. And as long as it's done right and you know what's going in it, it's so good, so good. So please don't worry about your worm compost. It should and usually is great.
Sweet.
Is wild rabbit poop safe? Absolutely. Chances are high they're foraging some really good goods.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be there where.
But also, how are you going to collect it? Like one pebble at a time?
Chicken keeping tips for a first timer in East Nashville.
Get rid of them.
No.
Just kidding.
No, we're gonna get chickens again
will.
Probably next year.
Maybe even this year. We'll see. Alexander loves animals. To give context, we like so I do the dairy business with my friend Tyler, and her daughter wanted to take over the chicken business when I was thinking about like downsizing our farm temporarily when we were like pregnant and having a baby. And so May took over the chicken business while I was convalescing. And so we actually don't even have chickens right now, which is why the goose is such a pain in the tushy, because she normally guards the chicken flock, and now she just annoys the rest of the animals because May was afraid of the goose, so she didn't go with the chickens. Anyway, all that to say, chicken keeping is...
I don't know if you can hear, but there's like a goose losing its ever-loving mind outside our door.
If you can't hear it, it's a real treat for us trying to be able to focus here. But all that to say, chickens in small numbers are so fun to have. And like, I mean, that's the gateway drug that got us into all of this, 15 years ago, 14 years ago. The tips are have fun with it. Feed them your table scraps. Get some eggs. What do you think? As a chicken tender, Adam, what would you recommend?
Don't overdo it. Don't have too many of them.
Yeah, too many of anything is a bad thing.
I think like 50 chickens is not better than 5.
Yep.
That's
true of goats, advice. True of chickens. One baby goat is really cute.
Quality
50
over
baby
quantity,
goats, always.
I think is the takeaway from animals.
Yeah,
general.
100%. We've gone.
Unless it's like your business, like with like cattle, beef, and stuff. Like I'd say.
Even then, I mean, we've had some real cattle is our business, and we have, one of our many businesses, but we have certain rotten eggs that are just like, as the minute that they're gone, we're like, oh, why did we even tolerate them being here that long? I mean, ironically, that's what the alpacas have turned out to be.
Also, your land can only handle so many cattle anyways,
or anything. Your land, don't overdo it with the land and the space that you've got.
We can really only do like 13 head at a time here.
Are you trying to tell me something right now? Because that's actually not scientifically correct, but we can talk about that later. In case anyone's wondering, we have 24 cows right now. going into the spring and the summer season, which like if we want to maintain 13 through the winter, but during the summer season when there's like insane grass growth, we always want to have more going in.
Yeah, I wouldn't contradict.
I was just gonna say if you're
that's true.
But yeah, no, if you have more animals than your land can support, you're gonna deal like it's just like gardening. The more things that you're fighting, you're going to have more, you have to spend more time cleaning up poop. You're going to have more escapes. You're going to have more like stress on your infrastructure. You're going to have more issues with pests, parasites, etc. You know, so like have some chill as you're getting into this. And I say that from having zero chill and then having to reap the repercussions.
I mean, I think that's like a good principle, like across the board with a lot of this is like, you know, you don't need to go crazy right out the gate. Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah.
This is great.
Thank you all so much for being here. We so value your time and attention, your support of the channel. Like, as you know, new parents, we so appreciate how much, you know, being able to spend more time with Alexander because we get the extreme privilege of doing this instead of going to our corporate jobs that we used to go to. Yeah, we're so thankful for all this. We're thankful that you take your time, our one non-renewable resource, and share it with us.
Yeah, we really like doing this.
Yeah.
This is a lot of fun. And then also thank you to a sponsor of today's video, Redmond.
Redmond is huge for all of your animal needs, all of your human needs.
You can use the code AnimalTrades for 15% off of anything on their website.
I also just wanted to just mention that my teeth, I never have any dental issues. Redmond toothpaste. This is a new product that like it used to look a lot different, but like this is so great. I use the Redmond toothpaste too. One of us does not. You can guess which one.
What was like? Wow.
I mean, that wasn't meant to be a slight.
Catching arrows over here.
I didn't mean them. I'm just saying.
Look at that. They're white. Okay.
Have the best night of your lives. We love and appreciate you all so much. Drink more water and, you know, put some electrolytes in it so it actually tastes good. Cheers.
Cheers.